Hi, I'm Christina and this is a book review of Build Your House Around Your Body by Violet Kupersmith. This is a historical fiction novel with a lot of magical realism. It was published in 2021 and it's been longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction 2022, which is where I first heard about it. So the story is set in Vietnam, and at the very heart of the story is the disappearance of a young woman named Winnie. So Winnie is in her mid-20s and she's a Vietnamese American. She's currently living in Vietnam and she is an English teacher. Now it has to be said that she doesn't really enjoy her job. She isn't very good at it. She doesn't really have many friends and she doesn't really seem to enjoy her life at all, to be honest. And there is also a very large cast of characters in this story. Another prominent character is Bin, and she is another young woman also living in Vietnam, but she lives in the Highlands, and she works on an orchard which is owned by her uncle and her auntie. And then we have two brothers. We have Tan and Long. One of them is a policeman and the other one is an administrator at a school. And then we have a man who is a fortune teller, and he has his two assistants, and this fortune teller deals with the occult, with demons and ghosts and all of those sorts of things. And then there are many other characters too, but they are the most prominent characters in this story. And as well as having a lot of characters, this story really spans a very large amount of time. So everything is given to you in relation to the day that Winnie disappeared. So we start sometimes 9 years before her disappearance, the day of her disappearance, 18 years before, years afterwards. So we're really going back and forth, and there's a lot of different time periods. And that is one of the things that didn't particularly work for me, I would have to say. There was just so many different characters to try and keep a track of in my head, and we were always going back and forwards in time and long jumps in time, sometimes 9-10 years, and it just kind of took me out of the story. As soon as I actually felt somewhat connected to any of the characters and what was actually happening in their time and their time period, I was just brought straight back out again, and I was with a whole other different characters in a different part of Vietnam in a completely different decade. And yeah, it just kind of took me out of the story. And also just all of these characters, I was hoping it was going to come together in some kind of really interesting, interconnected sort of way, and I was quite disappointed with the final payoff and the way in which all these characters are connected. I was just a bit disappointed by it and just a bit underwhelmed overall, to be honest. So in terms of the span of time that this book actually covers, the furthest point in time from Winnie's disappearance is back in 1942, which is 69 years before her disappearance. I just think that the scope of time that she was trying to cover and this massive cast of characters that she was trying to include was maybe just a little bit too ambitious, just a little bit too much. I think if we'd focused on slightly fewer characters, on maybe a narrower stretch of time, I would have been able to connect with these characters more. As soon as I did feel like I was connecting to any of these characters, I was just ripped backwards and forwards in time, and that definitely affected my enjoyment of the story. And not being able to connect to the characters definitely affected my enjoyment of the story too. And another thing that I would say, and this is definitely on me, I went into this book expecting a mystery at its heart, and then a little bit of historical fiction, because on the back of the book it says that two young Vietnamese women go missing decades apart. Both are fearless, both are lost, and both will have their revenge. So one woman goes missing in 1986 and one goes missing in 2011. So I assumed this was essentially a mystery novel because it is the mystery of these two missing women, and then obviously some historical fiction with the two time periods. But it's, I would say, not really a mystery novel at all. I would say it's first and foremost a magical realism book. It is very heavy on the magical realism, and then it's a historical fiction kind of genre, and I wouldn't even classify it as a mystery at all. I don't think that's really the point of this book. So that was a disappointment to me, because I was going into it hoping for an excellent mystery about these two women that have disappeared in Vietnam, and that's not really what you get. And then my other criticism would be that there's just way too much magical realism for me. So magical realism is a very kind of new to me genre. It isn't something that I've read very much of, and I think I like it in little doses. And that's it. That's definitely enough for me. There is a lot in here. It's very, very heavy magical realism. Lots of occult, paranormal aspects, lots of things going on, and I think I've found my limit to what I kind of enjoy in a book, and for me it was just way too much magical realism. So it was definitely interesting for me to read something that is completely different to anything I've read before, and quite outside of my comfort zone, I would say. But no, overall it was a disappointment for me. I'm going to give this one 2 stars, and that's just because I didn't feel a connection. I think this one's going to be pretty forgettable for me, to be honest. And yeah, it's just not my cup of tea, but that absolutely does not make it a bad book. So if you're interested in reading this one, if you love magical realism, I think definitely give it a go. I think it would be right up your street, actually. So I have now read 3 books on the Women's Prize for Fiction long list. I've read Flamingo, and I have read, what is it called? The Island of Missing Trees. So I think at this point in time, my favourite book that I've read out of the 3 is definitely Flamingo, and then The Island of Missing Trees is second. Both 5-star reads. I thought they were both absolutely wonderful, and this one is going to be bringing up in 3rd place at the moment with just a 2-star, and I think it's just not my cup of tea, and that's absolutely fine. So thank you so much for watching. Please do like the video if you liked it, and please subscribe if you like to see more of me talking about books. If you have read this book, I would love to know what you thought of it, whether you agree with me, whether you absolutely loved it. I'd love to know what you thought. So yeah, bye.